Noah Winterwiller, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
man. It's nice to meet you too. Oh yeah, JP, thanks
Yeah,
for having me.
absolutely, absolutely. As I was saying before, you're the first drummer that's ever been on the show, and I'm so ready to nerd out with you on this stuff.
Hell yeah, man. Happy to
Yeah,
be the first. That's awesome.
heck yeah, man. I feel like I feel like let me try to put this into an analogy when because our mutual friend Pass the Lettuce, Mr. Dalton Love, showed
Yeah.
me your work. He showed me your album Recovery Drum, and I
Oh
saw
yeah,
I
man.
saw your work, and I was like, I feel like Noah and I went to the same well and came
Yeah.
out with, different goodies from the same well. Does that make any
Yeah,
sense?
man. Yeah, definitely like the same sort of influences or like music, like obviously if you're friends with Dalton, you're probably into the Allman Brothers too and
Yeah.
Butch and I mean just all of that like jazz meets with southern rock and stuff like that. And then I also have, jazz itself and I love all kinds of music. So I figure you do too, based off the way that you play and the mixing of genres and styles and it comes out of yourself as something different, which is super cool. So yeah, man, I agree.
Word. Yeah, I feel like because there's a litany of new drummers all of the time, and frankly, drummers that blow me away with technical skill all the
Mhm.
time. I mean, if you go on Instagram and you scroll for 10 seconds, you'll find drummers that, I mean, their technical skill is mind blowing.
Yeah,
However, it doesn't stick with me. I don't remember it.
right.
And my favorite drummer of all time, Ginger Baker, he has this
Yeah,
incredible saying where it's not how fast you play, it's what you say.
yeah,
And that was the thing that struck me about your playing. Is you have a whole album of original music, and I feel like you
mhm,
have something to say. And I think to me, there's something to be said about musical drumming and storytelling, as opposed to look at me and how hard I practiced single strokes.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which that stuff's cool too. I mean, man, like the world's fastest drummer on the Guinness Book of World Records, they hit that little pad and it's like, whoa, that's freaking ridiculous. Or what's that guy's name that is like, this is how you
Mike
play this,
Mangini.
and yeah, Mike Mangini, and then also what's the he's I think he's from South America, but he just plays so fast. You've seen him before. I forget his name, but he's just like over like simple songs and stuff. And I'm like, man, that's a lot. But I agree with you. Like it has to do with like I don't know. There's like certain cadences with drums, and you feel that when you play that like they just feel good, or maybe you'll mess with the cadence so that you think it's going to go somewhere and then you flip it. Like there are a couple songs on there. I'm trying to remember which one it is. It's either Subdivided or Salamander Sandman, where it's like it's kind of pushing in a 6/8 sort of thing, and then I switched to 4, and there was it was all improvisation. The way we did that album was Nathan was just like, so kind of just create an improvisation with themes, and try to go back to that theme. The first one we did was the first song, Sleeky Trot. And I just played that kind of like a New Orleans meter-ish sort of feel. And Nathan just put everything on top of it. So he just kind of
Wow.
created the second part of the song. It was like kind of separate, but just, kind of putting something together. And when he showed me, I was like, whoa, dude, that's so cool. It actually sounds like I had an idea there. Like he finalized it for me, which is awesome. And yeah, that
Whoa.
picture of that drum is actually outside the hospital where my son was born. I was just walking around outside, and there was that recovery drum, and I thought it looked cool, and that was the actual lettering on it and all that. And we were just like, that's a good idea, especially recovery too. I had just been let go from Cosmic and all that stuff, trying to find my own bearings and doing my own thing. So there's a couple different meanings within the album, but yeah, no, I'm super proud of it. I listen to it all the time, and I'm like, man, that was actually awesome. Like, I like this, like it's rare to like your own stuff sometimes when you hear it so much, but I definitely still hang my hat on a lot of those grooves and some of those weird ideas that, are kind of imperfect, but like you said, there's like a character to it or a different quality that's not necessarily like choppy, it's more of a feel thing, oh, that sounds weird. I'm going to do it again.
The JP Touchette podcast is brought to you by Compadre. Love every walk. Do you have a strong and willful pulling dog? Well, not anymore. Compadre, the makers of the patented no-pull solution, have created a humane harness and leash system to help train against pulling and lunging behaviors. Compadre believes that you don't have to hurt a dog or break their beautiful spirit in order to get them to be good citizens on a leash. Gentle corrections around the strongest part of a dog's anatomy, the chest, means that you can guide and train your dog without painful pinch collars, e-collars, or choke chains. This system helps you to gain your dog's attention and lead them to walk calmly beside you. And if you use promo code JPT2025, you can get 10% off your order. And I can tell you from experience, you'll be glad you did. Seriously, guys, I have actually had a chance to try this myself, not on me, but on a big dog with a huge personality and a lot of energy. And this is a legit product that I actually believe in, and I believe in the owner's mission as well. This is an excellent company, and if you want to change the way that you are walking with your dog, this is the way to go. So if you want to see why dog trainers, pet owners, and vets love Compadre, then visit compadre.com. That's COMPAWDRE.com. Thanks, y'all. Peace.
So
yeah, that sounds weird. I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah,
that totally sums up so much of drumming, especially if you're drumming by like in a solo situation, or you're drumming and you have to like comp at something, and you're like, oh, I screwed up there, but that kind of sounds nice. Or maybe I screwed up, but that doesn't sound so nice. But maybe I'll do it again to make it sound intentional.
Exactly. Yep.
But talk to me more about the recovery drum part, because yeah, what was the you said that picture, because on the front of the album there's this recovery drum, and when I saw that, I'm like, it kind of sounds like he took that and made it his bass drum based on the way that you made the effects and different things. But but there's clearly a meaning behind that, and I know you touched on it a bit, but could you elaborate?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, recovery drum, and I didn't intend for this, but I got a lot of people telling me it's like recovery drug or recovery this, and like drums have always kind of been that like recovery thing for me. I always go back to them when something bad happens in my life, or music's always been there for me. I went to Belmont for school too, and been through multiple bands there, and emotions run through college too, and I was just drumming along for all of it. So instead of it being a drug, it's a drum, and I definitely felt that way after the Cosmic stuff, and they're doing great now. I've seen those guys again, like there's no bad blood. I'm playing with David Graham right now, half in town and half out of town, and I still teach. And I still play with Nathan too. We're still doing Freedom Junction, and we're actually going to be playing a cool festival in August in right outside of Portland, Oregon. So that'll be cool. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I forget what it's called. I keep forgetting the name. It's like Strum Fest or something, or Pluck Fest. But anyway, I'll look it up before the end of this, and I'll let you know. But definitely the recovery drum thing was like just wanting to identify myself as myself. I've never released music under my name, and it was kind of a gift from Nathan for him to do all this work on it. And obviously, I just went in and kind of made all the songs and made little changes to stuff. I remember one of the songs I had recorded on my phone. I was doing like charcoal grill, and I forget what it was. It was like lump charcoal, so it's kind of like wood, and it was making these like icicle kind of sounding stuff. I'm trying to remember
that's what that was.
On. Yeah.
That's so like, simmering on all cylinders, I think.
Yes, that's what it was. Yep. And because it kind of sounds simmery-y, it kind of sounded like icicles to me, even though it was fire. So I was like playing with that whole idea in my head. And then Nathan kind of combined it with that, triplet thing I was doing on the toms. And it just sounded like a wash of sound. And then it goes back to just the snare and all these cool things that Nathan kind of did to it. And I was like, whoa, that's awesome. But I guess, so he was mainly the producer on it. I was just giving him all this material, which is cool for it to come back and still sound like me and sound like our band, because we were Down Boy, now we're Freedom Junction. We had just have a different bass player. So yeah.
There's this self-consciousness I experience as well as being a drummer, because there's so much. And frankly, I wish I had the power to free all drummers, make it a hashtag or a t-shirt or something, because I feel like they have such music in their head, and in fact so much of what the music
Hmm.
is the drummer. I mean,
Yeah.
and if that drummer was able to have the same knowledge and capacity for melody and all these other instruments,
Hmm.
we would have just the sheer amount of music extra that we would have on top of all the music that we are blessed with today.
Right.
I mean, I mean, how did you go about that? I mean, I know you said a lot of it is like you lay down a track and then he adds to it. How much of a
Hmm.
say did you have in those songs? And how
So
did like the creative process go?
So the first one, Slinky Trot, was mostly that whole thing was just what I played, and then I played something new, and like he just kind of put things on top of it, but he kept the drum tracks as is. So and most of those
Wow.
were in like one or two takes. I was like, I like that. It's kind of imperfect, but I feel like it has this like feel to it. And when Nathan did like all everything, bass, guitar, and piano all on top of it, it sounded um different than I expected it to, which was actually really cool because I was like, man, this is like still both of us. I know. I think on Spotify it's under both of our names, Sugar Leg and Noah Winter Miller. But it just reminded me of stuff we used to do before Cosmic because we were playing all the time. That was kind of our big gig, and just got out and started touring. But yeah, no, I mean, I pretty much just like what's the one we were just talking about? Simmering was just the hi-hat idea. I was like, I'm just gonna play 16th notes and then I'm gonna add some stuff in between and then I'm gonna build on top of it. Um, and a lot of my playing is based off of improvisation, so it felt true to me. I never really play the same song, the same way twice. So
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. And what does all this come from? And what are your influences? What's your drumming story?
So I guess I mean I'll just start from the beginning. Remember the game Rock Band that like with the little controller and all that?
Yeah.
That was like my first
Yes.
introduction to music and all those Rock Band 2 songs and all that. And what I used to do when I got my first drum set, which was inspired by Rock Band, like I wanted to go and do it. I would go in no fail mode and I would just kind of read the colors on a real kit, trying to figure out where it actually was. And then I joined the School of Rock, which I teach at the Nashville one now. This was up in Pennsylvania. And so I joined that. I started taking lessons there. I did a show every season from Pink Floyd to Zeppelin to all the different kind of classic rock stuff. And then I was in jazz band. I was in marching band, jazz ensemble. I went in every direction I could with drums at the time, which led me to go to music school. But I really think the large one was the marching band for me because it was so different from drum set, but I really got to focus on my hands. I really got into Tommy Igoe's Perfect Hands for a Lifetime. I think that's what it's called. But I use that still in my lessons today. We start off with eights, singles, doubles, paradiddles. We don't go off on his whole chart with the roughs and the flams, but my more advanced students I do. But that's something that I always held with me. A lot of my teachers in the beginning did fat backs with me, where you just displaced the bass drum just based off of basic, eighth notes. So we went through one, E, and then you do two notes, then you do three notes, all the permutations of that. And you kind of find yourself with this library of bass drums that you could kind of create a beat with. And I still think about it today. I'm like, that's 3A or whatever, like I had them kind of memorized for a while there. And then it kind of just it gives you like a mental map of the subdivisions, when you're playing a beat, like, oh, I can add a 16th note in here and you can kind of see it and feel it. And then you don't have to think about it or count it. But that obviously takes practice, over time. You're going to be thinking about it a lot. But that was always the goal for them, was giving you all the tools and then, you know, putting them in wherever you want, where you feel like they fit, and being able to do that successfully. Same thing when I got into college. Chester Thompson, who played with Zappa, one of my favorite. My cat's name is Zappa, actually, my favorite artist. But man, he made us play everything lefty. So we would learn like a jazz comping thing, and he's like, "All right, now flip it," and not with the feet. So the feet would still be righty, but you'd have to play with your left hand doing the ride thing, and then comping with your right. And it kind of broke me for a while. But when I started doing that and feeling it out and playing on the hi hat with my left hand, like I started to feel more, not ambidextrous, but a little bit more like that on the drums. So yeah.
Wow. And
Yeah.
what were some of the early songs and early drummers, if there were, that just
Mhm.
blew your mind? And like, because for me,
Yeah.
I would hear certain songs and I'm like, I want to be that. Like, I want to
Yeah.
do that. Did you have stuff
Yeah.
like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. The first one was Good Times, Bad Times by Led Zeppelin. John Bonham was like
Yes.
huge one for me. And those doubles on the feet, that like mimic a heartbeat. I really wanted to learn that. So my teacher showed me, like going really slow, like right foot, right foot. And then as I got it faster, I kind of developed a little bit of a swivel thing. And that was just one of them. And John Bonham's always been one of my favorites. You said Ginger Baker, which is funny because Ginger Baker said, John Bonham can't swing a stack of, you know.
Yeah,
And like,
yeah.
which is funny because I think they both went at each other, but I love both of them. But yeah, he's definitely a big one for me. Trying to think of who else. Both Clyde and JB from James Brown's band. Those guys are, I still listen to them today. I'm like,
Impeccable.
man, they're so in front of the beat, or they're so like the perfect thing for this. And I know James Brown was hard on them too. So it's just I like players who are really focused and really articulate. I think Bonham was definitely bombastus, but he was definitely technically skilled with his hands and his feet. And he didn't actually hit that hard either. It was like a lot of the swinging technique in his hand. A lot of people think he was just bashing in, but he just got the right sound out of the drum and with rim shots and stuff and where to hit the
Yeah.
toms. Yeah. So yeah, definitely
Yeah.
him. I'm trying to think of another one. Tony Williams was the other one. I love Tony Williams. He's just like the jazz guy that like blows my mind all the time. He taught Tony Royster Jr., who's amazing now. He's kind of one of those dudes that like overplays a little bit, but man, he's just so good. And when you see him live with Jay-Z or C.D. Perry, whoever he's playing with right now, he doesn't even do that. That's all just him shedding, and getting it out.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Oh man. I have to I want to delve into a little bit more Bonham stuff as well. And then
Yeah.
the thing you said about Ginger Baker, I totally agree. I mean Ginger Baker was, he was my favorite drummer, but dude was
Yeah.
not the nicest fella on earth. Said a lot of very interesting things, played a lot of even more interesting things, but when it
Yeah.
came to people, I feel like not so good. But I do think that Bonham was like, I try to when I compare the two, it kind of works out well. But like with Bonham, Bonham was like it really interesting how you'd say, because I do agree he didn't have to hit hard. It's just how he hit and how huge his drums were and how he tuned them so high. But Bonham was like a whale. And it's like waves crashing against a beach or something. Like he just and just the way and like such simple beats, and I don't want to say that in like a reductive way. But
I know what
the
you mean.
intricacy within those simple beats made it just like unforgettable. And that's what I'm talking about with this like type of drumming versus like Tony Royster Jr., who I'll hail him all day with you if we want. But if you want to talk about the unforgettable sounds in drumming, he's one of those. And you take that with like Ginger Baker. Baker's like a spider or a toad. And again, it's like whale versus toad, that's kind of play on their solos, but I love there's something about those British drummers at the time where they incorporated different worldly beats. I mean Ginger Baker, especially with the African stuff, he opened me up to the world of African drumming through him, which those, and I hear that in your drumming as well. I hear these like like these like cool one and there's all these beautiful primal perfect beats that without many of us even trying as drummers, they just find their way in there. Like for example, the first drummer I ever met, I took a liking to him because I thought drumming was so cool, and he wrote down little charts of what I should learn if I ever wanted to play drums, and a paradiddle was number one on the list. Couldn't figure it out for the longest time. But I will never forget that, because the paradiddle is the key to understanding African rhythms. And you can play a paradiddle in a time signature like 12/8 or something like that, where it doesn't sound like a paradiddle anymore.
No,
Like, what do you think about that kind of stuff?
I love Danny Carey from Tool, and he is all about, fitting polyrhythms into like normal beats, like when you hear him playing chord, he can kind of flip it around and do all this stuff. But yeah, like going back to the paradiddle, like I always tell my students, like, man, just do one single, right, left, and then just do one double. And that's all it is. Like, that's the combination of double paradiddle, triple paradiddle diddle. They all are based off of that idea. The para means two, and the double diddle means, one-handed, right? Right. And I use that all the time with my students, and then I split it up between the feet. You play paradiddles with your feet too, between the hi-hat and the bass drum, or if you play double bass, second bass drum pedal. But that stuff, like that's another thing I was talking about, like the vocabulary. Like once you get that down, you play it at different speeds, then you can start incorporating it as a triplet, or something weird, and push yourself even further with that idea. But I definitely find that improvisation, if you just practice, like, because rudiments are boring when you start, I get all these students like, why am I playing this paradiddle? Why do I want to do this? But that's where it all comes from, even if you're just playing eights as a warm-up, that's like where you're priming your right hand for the hi-hat, and where to hit the hi-hat, the best bounce to get with the tip or the shoulder, and you can just keep going and going and going. That's why I always think, like, I always tell my students, like, you're never going to be exactly perfect, right? You're always going to be trying to keep it up or trying to get even better than that. It's like, it's kind of like an accelerator, right? Once you push it down, it's going to go up, and then if you let off of it, it's going to go right back down. So that's why practice is so important, and the rudiments, like at all my lessons, even when I'm just playing by myself, I'll go slow, 80 BPM, and just do eights, and just like make sure I'm really on it, how much more detailed can I get with my drumming and be more on the beat, because you'll find people you play with too are in front, on, or behind the beat, and you want to be able to do all of them as a versatile drum, so yeah.
Yeah, man, you're making me want to play right now. I wish I could. I'm in like a tiny little apartment in the middle of the city, so I can't I can't do it. It breaks my heart, but I totally agree with you. Is like, the times that I've gotten better are things that you're saying, where you take the time to go slow. And when you're a kid, like you're saying, like trying to tell a kid, like my teacher was telling me at, however old I was at the time, like focus on these rudiments. I'm like, oh, look, it feels like if you want to study Kung Fu and the Kung Fu master's like, scrub the floor for 8 hours. And you're like,
exactly.
But why? Like, what does that have to do with Kung Fu? But it was, it doesn't. And then you had like, I had that realization because I saw Ginger Baker do a DVD where he was in front of an audience just explaining how he practices, and he was playing rudiments. But he was doing it he was doing the rudiments to like a 12/8 bass drum and hi-hat beat. Yeah. And he could switch between, flam triplets, paradiddles, just double strokes, playing double strokes like an African beat. And it like, I had this out of body experience where I'm like, you can take anything and just make it interesting instead of playing the paradiddle straight, which it has its benefits for sure. You can, the vocabulary that you can have as a drummer and learning those core things, which to me connects to the core of music, the core of drumming, which is African beats. And you take that and you can make the craziest stuff. Like, I've had some moments where I've been able to fit in some crazy African beat, but it fits into the song musically. It doesn't sound like I'm trying to just show off or something, but those allow for that. And
definitely,
I hear some like when I think of the first song on your album, Slinky Trot, I just think of all these different like subtleties that you added in there. I think the first time I messaged you was about Slinky Trot. I'm like, because it's near the middle to end of the song where you just added these snare beats.
Oh
in the most comping jazz, like, because my favorite kind of drumming is like rock music with a jazz sensibility. And so you have that type of improvisation, like you say, because I mean, I just think that's the best music ever.
Yeah, no, me too, man. And it comes out, you know, you're not necessarily intending it to come out, but like those last hits, I think it was like dun, ga, dun, 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 ga, ga, or something like that. Where and before I was just doing like the dun, dun, ga, dun, 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 you
Yeah.
know, and then you kind of go back in between the two, or you know, I think about Under Pressure a lot. You know, the end of that, the firm, he's just switching between the hi hat and the crashes. Like I was just teaching that yesterday, but that's why it's on my mind. But even stuff like that, I love Queen's drummer because he is one of those guys that like once you hear that on the hi hat, you know it's him. Even when he's playing
Yeah.
fast, like, and it's harder to do that because his left foot's almost not playing on a note. It's just getting that sound, and then he's just going back to the bass drum. And it's kind of really hard to do that, especially like if you're just starting out on drums, you don't even use your left foot for a while. So I definitely agree. Like he's another one of those guys that does that. But with Slinky Trot at the end, there's like one point I just go to just straight, just right hand, you know, eighth notes, and there's no subdivision, and I kind of like that too. It's just like, oh, this is completely different, and then we're back over to the hi hats. And I actually think those hi hats were two crash cymbals, like 17 or 18 inches. That's why they sound so beefy. It's the only song that has those on them. But yeah, definitely just like throwing things together with that, and it turned out to be really cool. So
Yeah. When you talk about the thick hi-hats, why is his name Steve Jordan? There we go. Steve Jordan and his thick boy hi-hats. Those things, like,
right? I think, yeah.
I think he uses 17-inch, like you say, like crashes.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening to this podcast right now and they're interested in hearing some of the craziest drumming ever, there's a video that Steve Jordan does on, I think it's Reverb, and he just goes into oh man, why I'm so bad on names when it's on the spot. Who's the guy who wrote Waiting for the World to Change?
Oh yeah.
John Mayer.
John Mayer. Yeah.
There's a beat he did for John Mayer, and he starts playing it in this Reverb video on just like it looks like a vintage red sparkle Ludwig kit, and he's got these massive hi-hats on. And dude, I can't get that beat out of my head. It's just the most funky, like I can hear it right now. It's just so good. And
that display snare with the clap right in front of it, like that's just so good.
Dude, and another hi-hat person you're making me think of is Elvin Jones.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Complete hi-hat solo. Dude. It's just like, wow. Yeah.
yeah. There's an album he did with Jimmy Garrison. And there's a song in there where his comping is insane with the hi-hat. Like, I don't even know how he's able to, like, he just starts playing like eighth notes, straight eighth notes on the hi-hat while he's doing the most complicated independent jazz stuff ever. And when you talk about the hi-hat stuff, like, yeah, you don't a lot of people don't unlock that until they start looking into jazz and realizing that you've got this whole other appendage on you.
Yep. Yeah, right? I definitely feel that. Yeah, it's insane, man. Like, I'm trying to think of Elvin Jones, another one. Also, Buddy Rich. Like, he would do all the stick tricks on the hi hat, like, and the way that he open and close it, like getting that, you know, like really really quick. Bonham took a little bit of that too. You can hear him. I'm trying to think of a song, but it's like he almost opens it all the way and then closes it really fast. It's like it's this pushing effect, or like right before a snare, like dugga dugga dugga, you know, and like it just adds this other element. I play a lot of train beats right now, and I'll add some of those in, like what I'm building up. It's like you know, and that's kind of a cool idea. I don't hear people do that a lot, so I always like, I don't know, just like to make it a little bit different and more like me, because I'm definitely not someone that was raised on country music, but I play it a lot living in Nashville. So yeah,
man. And I mean, to be able to make something like a train beat sound your own must be like difficult. I played a lot of it when I lived down in Georgia with Dalton, and I'm just like, you guys love the train beat. I need to, because I keep playing it over and over again. I gotta find a way to make it unique. But when you talk about John Bonham and the hi-hat, I'm just remembering this now while you were talking, and if people are interested, there's a video of John Bonham's son playing. It's like a home video, and his
Yeah.
son's playing on this kit. And then John gets on the kit. And he starts playing a Ike and Tina Turner song.
Yeah.
I think it's called Nutbush City Limits or something.
That's exactly what it is. Yep.
And
so cool.
He's playing this straight 4 on the floor beat. And then and he's just adding these things with the hi-hat that, like, to me, what blows me away is how people, like, you talk about like Ringo Starr or Bonham or Steve Jordan or any of these like groove drummers, how like you can play one note, or like when you talk about the drummer for Queen, you play like just a few notes on any of the instruments in a drum kit.
Right.
And people know it's you. That is, like, to me, the ultimate achievement, better than
Chopping
any
out.
sort of technical chop out.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think it has to do with, like, because I mean, a lot of those studio guys don't want, you know, they almost want to sound like other people, because then they'll get hired more, you know, like, oh, this is, but even with someone like Aaron Sterling is like on pretty much he's on a lot of John Mayer, but like Sabrina Carpenter stuff and Taylor Swift stuff. Like, you can kind of hear that it's him. But he is also one of those guys that just like is so good at sound and so good at getting the right sound out of a drum. Like, if you watch his videos on Instagram, like, they're so cool. And they're not really like super choppy, but they're super tasteful. I think he kind of plays like what we were talking about when we started the podcast, you know, like, it's just identifiable, but it's musical, and it's not necessarily right, you know, or but it is perfect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not very familiar with Aaron Sterling. I'm definitely going to go check him out for sure.
Yeah.
And well, it's interesting you're talking about drummers who well, we're both kind of talking about drummers who are so identifiable, or people in the studio. What about Vinny Colaiuta, who's like the chameleon of drumming?
Yep.
Like, dude can just starts
plays
like,
everything. Yeah.
Plays literally everything. And then for me, I've been listening to so much Jeff Beck recently, and when he was playing with Jeff, like the Crossroads Guitar Festival show, and he is literally playing everything during that concert. Like, I don't even understand how you get to that point.
It's crazy, man. He also used to play with Zappa. It's kind of a funny story about how he got the gig with Zappa. Zappa was like not taking any more auditions, and Vinny's like, well, I know the Black Page by heart, which is this crazy thing that, because Frank was a drummer to start off, and he wrote this piece that has like 5 lits in it, and basically it's called the Black Page because there are so many notes on it. And Vinny knew it and walked into wherever they were rehearsing, was like, I could play it for you, Frank, and then played it like almost perfectly, and he got the gig from there. I'm trying to remember this one song Vinny was on. Oh yeah, Keep It Greasy. It's like in 1916 or something, but then the way he counted it was just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, because then this is 19. But I was like, holy shit, how do you keep track of that? Yeah, listen to that. Keep It Greasy, Frank Zappa. It's awesome. Another guy that's like that is Keith Carlock. He plays with Steely Dan now, but man, he can do anything.
I was just listening to him.
Yeah, he's so good, man. I would love to meet him.
Oh, well, I was. It's funny you say that, because I that's such weird intuition. I don't know if this is on purpose or not, but because I just felt like I needed to start listening to him today.
Yeah.
Because maybe a couple weeks ago, I followed this account called Africa Nashville. It's a bunch of for people who are listening, it's a bunch of African dudes who drummers in Nashville, and they're insane. But there's a clip of one of their drummers. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he's playing with Keith Carlock. And what the heck? Like, that stuff is like, you couldn't be more up my alley with that stuff. And and then I started listening to his like Vic Firth Spotlight stuff and all his drum solos, and I hear a lot of Clyde Stubblefield from James Brown. I hear a lot of African stuff too, and like his flams. Like, I can't even, it's still so fresh in my mind, but the way he's able to like make a like a rock beat and add that jazz sensibility, add that
Oh yeah.
jazz comping to it is
Hmm.
so tasteful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that stuff blows me away.
I love him,
And you're
dude. The
talking
way he
about
holds the sticks too, he's got like his fingers out. It's almost like it's not even touching his hand. And he's got
yeah,
like this right hand thing going on, but it still sounds so good. It's like he's pulling the sound out of the cymbals and the drums. It's insane.
yeah. I was watching the from the camera from behind the drum kit, and he's got like yeah, he's in traditional grip, but he's holding it like his right stick so much higher up,
Mhm.
and he's like it's a very
It doesn't look
I don't know, it makes
natural,
me
like it looks
no.
like, but I guess it's just how he learned to play, and like I guess a lot of it comes from the elbow. I feel like he's like trying to give himself that almost like less gravity if you keep your elbow up there, and then you're not trying to hold up your whole hand that way. I don't know. I'd
Yeah.
have to talk to him about it, but I mean that's what I imagine is that it's kind of like the way that he plays. It's like I'm just kind of trying to move with what I'm doing because he does play a lot of notes together, and you don't even really
Yeah.
know it.
Right. Yeah, like he'll have yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And
Mhm.
then you
Mhm.
like how did you decide that that was where you were going to do that? I love that.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about people's posture, like it makes me feel better when I see people like him and he's
Yeah.
able to play while looking like that because
Yeah.
I drum open-handed and I
Mhm.
just feel like I look so awkward when I'm playing. But then I see, people like Keith Carlocker and why
Yeah.
again, I'm just give me a moment. I'm going to remember
Yeah.
his name from Mahavishnu Orchestra, Billy Cobham.
Billy. Yes. Yeah. Billy. Yeah.
Billy Cobham's an open-handed guy and one of
Yep.
the best, one of the greats. So
Yes.
there's so much about when you're a drummer, like working with how long your limbs are, how long the sticks are, where you're gonna
Mhm.
place things, like
Right.
or like, do you know Darrow Jones? Have you ever heard
Yeah.
Darrow
Mhm.
Jones?
Yeah. All the facing away from him. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's got his drum set inverted and he's
Yeah.
like towering over it, sometimes
Yep.
standing up while
Yeah.
he's
Yeah. To hit the
playing.
toms. Yeah. That one rack tom.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel better because it's I feel like the more you lean into what makes you weird and just go for it, maybe the better it becomes,
Yeah.
you know?
I definitely agree with that, especially because like no one's ever done that before. So it's like, and if you could play as because Daru played a lot with Dilla too, so he's got that in his back pocket. That's like his feel,
Yeah.
and he plays with Jack White and can slam, and add. I feel like Jack White always looks for kind of what we were talking about, that identifiable thing or not necessarily perfect thing in drummers. Like I know he doesn't have Daru right now. It's like that other band. I forget the dude's name. But he even plays like
Yeah.
that, like kind of like Meg White, but a little bit more technical.
Yeah.
Daru was definitely, the most technical guy, but still had that like, I'm going to play the drums and I'm going to play these fills that are kind of wonky, but they work out, and it still feels great. Which I think is the goal with a lot of music. Not everyone's a drummer, not everyone's critiquing, those little things. So for him to be a standout moment, it kind of makes you remember the drummer in a way when you do that sort of stuff with the setup.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, man. I hope that we keep it this way because I'm so worried about AI replacing stuff. But then I remember that I think that's the whole point of music in
Yeah.
itself is like seeing the individuality of these players
Yeah.
coming together and it's so special. It's so special to
Yeah.
have that. I don't know if there are other species in the universe who can do what humans can do when they put their hands on a piece of wood with strings on
Right.
it or
Right.
a hollow trunk or put
Yeah.
skin your goat and put that bastard on a on a hollowed out
On a
trunk and
tree.
slap it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah,
Yeah.
and there's just something about it. Have you okay, so here's something I want to ask you. Have you ever had a moment where you're playing with a drum? Like for me, I have this where I am right now, there's a African drum circle in the summer. And
Oh
every
wow.
once in a while I'll be graced with the presence of like some dude from Nigeria or something who'll just show up.
Mhm.
And everyone speaks a different language over here. So
Wow.
I don't talk with them, but you're playing and you feel like you're talking with them. Do you ever have
Yeah.
a feeling like that? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't done that in a while. The most like I've played with other drummers was we did double drums with Daniel a few times, but those were like one-off things. I did it once with the guy from Government Mule and Marcus King's drummer, and it was awesome. It was really cool. It's kind of it's a different thing to think about, right? Because you're kind of either playing the main backbeat or you're kind of adding things in between. Same with you know, I'm forgetting the other guy's name, Butch and dang it, JMO. JMO. Yeah, like
Yeah.
JMO was kind of the jazzier one, and Butch had the backbeat. And you see that with Tedeschi Trucks too. They definitely pick a side and stick to it. I try to remember the guy's name over there too. Names are hard when you're on the podcast, but
It's all good, man.
yeah, but definitely like playing with other drummers, you can kind of feel that. And some of my like more advanced students will get like we were learning Asia by Steely Dan, Steve Gadd, and like just feeling out all like his rhythms and those solos and stuff. It's so fun to do that with someone that feels it the same way, you know. And I feel like that's what
Yeah.
you kind of get into when you play with other drummers. Like for you, those you didn't know how to communicate with those people verbally, but you could do it musically, you know. And like I'm sure those rhythms, you know, are universal because they're all based off dancing. That's why we have drums. That's why people sang, you know. It's all from dancing and enjoying life. So I feel
Yeah.
like if they did that and you did that, and then you played something and then you kind of added to it too, like that's what it's all about, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not even necessarily putting that exclusively for drummer to drummer, but even
Oh yeah,
and obviously that's what a band is
yeah,
communication between
yeah,
different instruments. But I just love that feeling where it's like I mean, ironically, I am hosting a podcast, but I don't feel like my words are the best they could be, and I don't
right,
feel like that I guess almost telepathic communication you have with people where you're looking at them and you both figure something out and you're
yeah,
smiling like I feel like a lot of that stuff happened again. I'm obsessed with Jeff Beck right now, but like some of
yeah,
his like the Blow by Blow records and the
yeah,
Wired records and stuff where like it feels like they started the song out just kind of like warming up and then they get
yeah,
into this craziness where this like almost like nobody knew that was what they were going to create until they
hmm,
did it, and
right,
because there's all these different people together in one room
yeah,
they were able to. That stuff
yeah,
blows me away, and
yep,
I hope that more people can experience that, because there's something
yeah,
that we lose when we try to use words. There's this
yeah,
immense emotion and communication that can happen with music that
hmm,
I think it was Jim Morrison that says that music inflames temperament, and I love
yeah.
that.
Oh, that is cool. I do like that too. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I was just reading Jimmy Page posted this thing and just talking about AI and kind of what we were just
yeah. I
talking
read
about
that
too.
too.
Like, he's talking about like you can't really replace what the four of us from Led Zeppelin did in a room. Like AI could try to mimic it, but the way that they got those sounds with Bonham's drums and using the mansion and just like the overall like life stuff that was happening, the cultural things that were happening in the late 60s, early 70s that brought them to sound like that, you know, the equipment that was available to them, the microphones that were being created, the technology behind the guitar. It's pretty wild. Like I don't think that anything artificial could ever, you know, match that. I also want to, you know, talk about the drum machine, right? The first drum machine song I think was Sly and the Family Stone, Family Affair. It sounds right. I watched that Sly documentary and I think they were talking about that, but he used real drums and, you know, a drum machine. And still to this day, like people still, you know, they're DJs and drum machines, but I still feel like most people still want to hear a real drum set. So hopefully that fact is the drum machines have been around since the 80s. The fact that drums haven't gone away, it's the same for music and AI and all that stuff. Even when you see an AI picture, it's like they have like 10 fingers on one hand. Like it's pretty obvious that it's not real. And I think, you know, there is a little bit to be scared of in certain industries. But with music, I think it's human. So the fact that
Mm.
we are human, we really can't lose unless the main people listening to music are robots. You know what I mean? And I don't see that happening
Yes.
because they don't
Yeah.
have souls. So yeah.
Well, I worry about that too. So, like my
Mhm.
my wife tries to trick Chat GPT all the time into saying that it has a soul, and
Oh
we're
man. Oh
always
my
like,
God.
we're always saying please and thank you to the, Siri or Chat GPT or something that, when it's,
In case they take over.
yeah, when they take over and they start mowing down crowds and stuff, they look over and like, oh, he said please and thank you. Yeah, you're good. You're
Yeah,
good.
that guy's good. Don't mess with him.
But I'm using Midjourney AI to generate some stills and then taking that, putting it into After Effects for this project
Nice.
I'm working on. And I mean, I wish that that I could afford an artist to do that, because I feel like it just would be more authentic. And there's something it does feel a little bit like you're cheating a little bit, and you're also feeding the beast. But
Right.
I think that I think the moment that we stop putting our hands on drums and sticks and strings and I think that's the moment we stop being humans. I think we'll be on the next evolutionary step to whatever it is, and whatever
Human
it is
cyborg.
beyond me. Yeah, yeah. And even still, like, my sister got me this. I think I'm using it to prop up my mic right now. I can't show you, but it's like a electric drum machine, and I cannot bring myself to understand it, because you gotta add all of these different things and loop it together in this software. And to me, as someone who's built his whole, I guess you could call it skill in drumming, is based off of the subtlety of my body. And I struggle with that, because it's like this machine, it's like a German word, machine. It's its own skill set. I think it's a different skill set, and it's kind of locked in this time signature, which you're limited, but the creativity comes from other things, like finding different sounds, and maybe you record things like your charcoal and you put that as a beat. And but I feel like it's different than sitting on a kit and being like, I'm gonna add pressure on this part of the stick so that it will roll, or maybe when I hit the crash, I'm gonna like push the stick into the crash so it doesn't even ring out. And there's all these like excellent things you can do in person that that are lost in that.
Definitely. I mean, you feel that when you play electronic kit at home, or one even like a really good one. I always like try to find like, oh, where's it not gonna hear me when I play really, really quiet, because like those little small piano things you can play on a snare only really come out with a real head. Same thing with like a practice pad. Like I feel like it kind of isn't the same. A lot of the play, like at School of Rock, we have these mesh heads, and they're so bouncy. I'm like, this isn't really like a real snare, and like it's definitely it's not electronic, but it's still like I don't know. There's nothing like a real snare head, a batter head, and it tuned nicely, and you kind of can hear the snares everywhere. So yeah, I definitely agree with that it's like it's different. But obviously, if you're in New York City, electronic kit with headphones on is perfect, for something like that, but definitely I heard this the other day that Van Halen's 1984 was recorded with electronic toms and drums. So Hot for Teacher, everything on that album is he played it through bass drums, but the bass drums had triggers in them that went into a drum machine, and they got those sounds from there, and they sound so real, right? Yeah, that album is electronic drums in like Eddie Van Halen's like apartment or something at the time. Yeah, isn't that wild?
That is insane. That is insane. Yeah, I've spent so much time trying to figure out, because my dad showed me that song, and we were both like, I was obsessed with how the heck he got it to sound like a motorbike, like the I'm like, how the heck? And it's really cool. Like the whole time we've been messing with computers, and I just think we can do it. We just have to do it harmoniously. Oh, how about this question? I've been I've argued with people on stage who are in charge of sound a couple times, where they're like, why don't you cut a hole in your bass drum? And you put the mic in the bass drum, and I'm like, no. And I kind of tick people off, because I have a Ludwig Classic Maple 24 by 14 bass drums,
Yeah,
those
it's like
big
thin,
boy.
yeah.
I want that. I want to sound. I want it to like sound so full. And
Yeah.
like you were talking about earlier about how Led Zeppelin, you know, like for when the levee breaks, and they're putting these mics up this massive stairway so they get the depth, and they didn't, you know, they, as far as I understand, they lightly kind of dampen sort of drums. It's a completely different different sensibility to make the drum set sound so full. Or like I think Keith Carlock keeps everything wide open as well. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I use those EMAD things. I have one in my Tama, but my Gretsch, which I used on Slinky Trot, is a 24 by 14 as well, and I keep that one. Like I pulled the EMAD strip out of the drum head and just left that one open. So, and that one I have a painted head on the front with no holes in it. So it definitely has that like big sound, and it's kind of like a marching drum almost. But I've also played with my smaller kits with like a pillow in it, you know, and it just sounds really light, and it doesn't have any, you know, what do you call it? Delay or reverb on it. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't ring. My son's about to get up here in a minute. I can see him moving around, so we'll tie this up here in a minute.
Yeah. No worries, man. No worries. Well, I really appreciate talking with you, man. It's been nice to actually nerd out with another drummer. I feel like this is the closest I've gotten to really jamming with somebody. It may be with words, but I hope eventually sometime. At some point, I plan on returning back to the heartlands of America, and maybe we'll cross paths, man.
Yeah, man. I'm from New York too. Like I before I went to, you know, outside of Philadelphia, I lived in the city. I have a lot of family up there, so maybe I'll be up there too.
All right, word up, dude.
Yeah,
well, hey, man. Thank you so much, Noah. And for people listening, if you want to listen to Noah's album, it's called Recovery Drums. Fantastic album. Go listen to it. Support the man. And thanks so much, dude.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Hope you have a good day.
Yeah, you too.